Yeah, so I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial, but it's probably good for your audience to think about.
Welcome to the Small Business Breakthrough Series, where each week we are identifying and interviewing guests in the small business industry that support small businesses. We're all about small businesses here at the Business Breakthrough, and we want to interview today diving into sales. We have talked in the past, we have talked about marketing, we have talked about coaching, we have talked about everything, but we have yet to talk about sales. And so we have a very unique guest coming on. He is the Chief Sales Officer and founder of the Sales Performance Team. Nick Luisi is on the podcast today. Nick, how are you today?
Jason, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. Wonderful. I love to be the inaugural speaker on sales, right? So no one could reboot everything I say. And one of the topics that's near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate being on here, and I appreciate all that you do for the entrepreneurial community.
I appreciate you, Nick. Nick specializes in sales, processes, playbooks, and fractional sales leaders for companies. So we're going to dive into some of those questions, but can you give us a snapshot of what your business is and then major outcomes that you get for your clients?
Sure. So many times we come into businesses and work with founder-led businesses, right? Small business owners that are doing the sales themselves, or maybe have had some starts and stops in hiring for salespeople and haven't had success. They're successful because they're the individual seller, but they want to look at enterprise value, want to look at increasing their revenue, as well as exiting right at a higher multiple. And if they're the sole salesperson, they're going to have some problems with each of those. So we come in, kind of do a really high level and down and dirty analysis, right? Kind of see what's going on at about 10 different sections of the sales process. And then from there, we build out a very detailed plan of what are the next steps going to be. And that starts with creating a really good playbook. If they have salespeople, putting them on an up-leveling plan, right? Kind of putting a training program in place. If not, we work on hiring salespeople for them. And then we put on what are the KPIs, what are the quotas, what is the getting stuff done and sold, how do we measure that for success, if you will? And then we start working with their team and working with them and executing all of that. So the outcomes usually about three to 10 times increase in sales. Hate using the word X, right? So everybody's different. Hiring salespeople, for some, they've never hired salespeople before or never hired salespeople that stick. And so we increase the tenure of the sales team, as well as getting the owner out of the day-to-day management of the sales, and hopefully out of the day-to-day sales grind if they're in it.
That is, sounds like a fantastic thing for sale entrepreneurs out there who need help with sales, and a great service to bring in. Can you describe who your services work best for?
Yes, like I said, small businesses, usually about three-quarters of a million to a million and above, want to have sales, product or services, right? So we work with product-based businesses, we break with services-based businesses. We also work with a lot of coaches and consultants and info educators, if you will. So that 50% of our business is that, 50% is traditional businesses, home improvement, home services, transportation, you name it. That's the fun of it. We get to work with everybody, and we act as bumblebees because we learn a lot from each industry that we're in and our teams are in, and we bring that to all of our clients on best practices. So that's the fun stuff too.
And Nick, I'm in the coaching space, and so I get bombarded with different companies that are coming at me with different sales pitches, and like, we can do
Sure.
this for sales, we can do that for sales, right?
Yeah.
What would you say sets your business or approach apart from others in the space?
Well, for number of things. First and foremost, we're also trained as marketers, right? So I've been a VP of marketing and a marketing and entrepreneurs, right? So we have those three buckets that we look at. And so we really have the scope of how do you get the right ideal customer profile in, right? Because a lot of times there's a lot of waste in businesses because they're not targeting the right people. So we've done a lot of analytics to figure that out. Second thing is that we're a team of sellers, right? I'm on the phone every day, either for myself or for my clients. And so we really know what's working today. A lot of times, sellers, and I'm not taking anything out of it, or companies that you're referencing, they're working off of old playbooks, right? And the old playbook may have worked pre-COVID, maybe even in 2023, but it doesn't work today. Today, sales are a little bit elongated. They're taking a little bit longer to get through the pipelines. And so we know what's going on. Plus the fact that we're in so many different industries, we learn from each of those industries and bring that group learning to all of our clients.
It's a big point. I've done a few different shorts and different reels about that specific topic around looking outside of your industry to actually gain progress. And so, but by utilizing those, that it makes for an amazing experience for your customers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Let's be real. You didn't start your business to feel stuck, overwhelmed, or bored out of your mind. But yet, here you are, spinning, stalled, or just chasing every shiny object just to stay motivated. And I know exactly how you feel because I used to do the same thing. But that's why I built the Momentum community for founders like you. It's for people who are ready to get serious, simplify, and build a business that actually moves forward. It uses peer accountability, and it's what I used to be able to grow my business successfully and have a great exit. Does this sound like something you need? Click the link in the description below and let's have a conversation. Enjoy the rest of the show. What's the biggest challenge your industry faces today, and how are you tackling that for your clients or partners?
So I think it's twofold, Jason. And I think the first one is, where does AI play in? Right? Where does AI, like right now, everybody's waving the flag and it's the end all be all, but it's probably not, right? And it's probably not for a lot of entrepreneurs out there. But you have to be using it. So how do you selectively use it to maximize the productivity of your team, to maximize the output, to maximize your messaging, right? So how do you use AI and where is it going to go, right? What does AI calling, dialing look like? What will there be AI reps, right? How do we tease that out? So that's the first thing that we're looking at and trying to bring solutions to the marketplace. And that changes, right? So that's a slippery platform that's built on. Not that it's bad, it's just that it's ever changing and ever evolving. So it makes it a lot of fun, but it also makes it difficult. Second thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of our customers are dealing with is hiring really good talent. Now, I think for one of the reasons is they can't afford really good talent. So maybe you have to get C-level players and up-level them to B-level players, right? But it's difficult for a small business to acquire A-level players because they want to work for the big brands, the big logos, big comp packages, all of that. So we work with mid-sized entrepreneurs, small to mid-sized businesses, and many times we have to find certain levels or certain psychographic and demographic people that we could put in place and teach them how to be higher level, higher executing salespeople. That's not easy, but it's one of the things that we excel in.
Excellent. We've talked about the current. Now let's jump ahead and see, where do you see this field evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? And we can bring AI back into that conversation if you want, but definitely, how are you staying ahead of the curve as the evolution of sales is happening every day?
Yeah, so I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial, but it's probably good for your audience to think about. I think for I think the current generation of sellers, some of them were creating lazy sellers, right? They've never had to build their own prospecting. They've never had to go out and get their own appointments, right? So they're used to kind of being fed people and putting them on the schedule, right? And then from there they do the discovery call, they do the deep dive, they do the presentation of findings, they do the demo, whatever the next step is, but that's all they know. So they only know maybe 2/3 of the sales process. They don't know the most important part, which is filling the pipeline, filling the funnel. I think a lot of industries are rethinking that SDR. Is it economical, right? Does it make sense? Is it really giving us the value? So one of the things that we're looking at, we have a partner that we work with, that we've been working with for 5+ years, is can you offshore that SDR so it's a little bit more economical for the business owner? And what does the skill set look like and how, but it takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of time. You have to really, really, really be focused on that. So I think that's one of the things that we need to look at. How do we create full cradle to grave, if you will, sellers, right? So opening the account to closing the account. What does that look like? And are we doing damage to a group of sellers? That's one thing I think about 24/7, really trying to do that. Second thing is that everybody wants to sell one way, and that's not successful. And I think it's going to be more and more has the generations younger than us, if you will, right, start moving into more buying decisions or buying committee leads. They want to communicate differently. They want to do things differently. So selling as we may have sold to baby boomers and Gen Z and Gen X, right, kind of that's going to be a lot different. And so we have to really evolve our processes and our systems to be able to sell to that. I'm really excited about the level of entrepreneurship out there. I think that's constantly growing, constantly really great entrepreneurs like those that listen to the show doing a lot of really, really fun things. I really think the gig economy is going to hit sales really, really hard. So I think, those are things that we have to look at. Certainly AI is on our scope, right? What we're talking about today probably will be dated in 30 to 45 days anyway, so we don't even have to talk about it, but it's certainly in a year from now will be dated, right? And so you constantly have to be evolving. And so, what does that look like? Listen, I've sold through all different systems. I grew up on the one card system. I'm dating myself, right? There wasn't even CRMs. We were able to send faxes. Now, if you send a fax through, people would look at you like you're crazy, right? So I've seen the evolution of technology. Those are just tools. We're still selling to humans, but humans are evolving, right? Humans are processing different. More females in buying decisions, right? More females in leadership, which is great. And so, how do we interact with that? And what does the sales process and system look like? And what do talk tracks look like, right? And so, we have to kind of figure all that out.
Oh, that is a fantastic answer and definitely part of it. When you talk about the sales organizations and their kind of lack of being able to go find it, I think what COVID did is it created this humongous demand, and we ended up getting into this order taking of, of sales reps, and they lost the thought process that, wait a minute, even 3 years prior to that, we used to have to grind it out and pick up the phone and call, and now they went through this small period of it. So that's some great interpretation, and it's nice to see that it's happening across multiple industries and not just specific ones. Nick, it has been such a great interview so far. Are you ready to go into some lightning round questions?
I love lightning rounds. Let's rock and roll. That's wonderful.
Okay, let's go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee as much as possible. So it's one of my addictions.
Cats or dogs?
Dog, 100% dog.
Okay, if you could grab only one weapon or item during a zombie apocalypse, what would it be?
One weapon probably would be grab my family and get out of it as fast and furious as I can.
There you go. Okay, favorite quote or phrase that you think about often?
So I think Teddy Roosevelt, right, the man in the arena, I think is one of the most important quotes, especially for entrepreneurs, because a lot of times we get a lot of stones thrown at us or we want to quit. So I think that's one of the most important ones.
That's a great one. I used to have that hanging up. I might have to I think I need to reprint that out. Just thinking about that right now. I think I'm going to do that this afternoon. Favorite movie or streaming series that you love?
I love any movie possible. I'm addicted to really the Wedding Crasher. If it's on, even wherever I jump in on, I'm gonna watch it. I've seen it so many times, but we were just coming back on a flight to Boston and I watched it and I laughed out loud that I think people on the plane thought I was crazy. But that's one.
How about one book that has influenced your life the most?
There's so many, right? You and I are, if those that are listening on Audible audio, but they could see us if they're watching it on, we both have books behind us, and I think any book is great. Obviously, I'd have to go to Zig Ziglar, right? The Secrets of Closing the Sale taught me that there's a process, right? And you got to treat people differently. I think it's the Bible for all salespeople. So let's start with that one. I'd be remiss if I didn't look at some of the other ones like Peter Drucker, right? I think that's a really great for leadership, understanding the difference between management and leadership.
Okay, the biggest obstacle you have overcome and one lesson that you have learned from it.
So I think the biggest obstacle I've ever overcome was I had a marketing agency. It was my second entrepreneurial venture, and we launched it in 2006, and we ended up selling it. I had some venture capital, I had some partners. So in 2012, we sold it. From 2006 to 2008, I thought I was the smartest guy in the world because our industry was home improvement, home services. Well, in 2009 and 2010, I realized I was not that smart because that industry just got decimated. Nobody was spending any money. Money freezed up. And so I had to pivot that business. I had to pivot my ICP. I had to just change everything. I think the other thing, which is what I learned, was that when business is really good, as a small business owner and entrepreneur, sometimes you take your foot off the gas pedal of sales, right? It just gets easy. Money's coming in, just like we talked about with COVID. Money was coming in, so we had order takers. I thought I was really, really smart and had a great business model. I realized it was built on straw, right? And so I had to really get down to the fundamentals, get back on the street and sell. So the thing I learned, and I want everybody to learn from this, one is, I had a line of credit of $500,000. I blinked and Chase took that down to 75,000. That's a lot of money to not have at your disposal, especially when we were out of pocket for a lot of our clients for a lot of media buys and direct mail in that. So always watch the checkbook, always watch cash flow, always, always, always keep the foot on the gas and then some for sales. Never give up. And even when you think it's the coasting time, you can never stop selling. You can never stop prospecting. You can never allow your team not to be filling that funnel every day.
That is some of the best things that you can learn from. It mimics so much that I've talked about on my YouTube channel, talked about in social media. Is you've got to understand your finances. You've got to know that you've got cash coming in. And then, yeah, keeping on that gas on the sales pipeline is so unbelievably critical. I've made the same mistake on that front before. So, Nick, it has been an awesome interview. How can anybody that wants to collaborate with you get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is just kind of hit me up on email, nick@salesperformanceteam.com. You could go on our website, salesperformanceteam.com. We give away a lot of content, right? So YouTube, we give away a lot of content. We also have our book as an ebook. If you want a physical book, you could go on Amazon and buy it. We give a lot out of our checklists, how we look at things, our thought processes. We provide you all of that. Go to Sales Pack, right? Sales Pack, like I'm packing for a trip.salesperformanceteam.com. And you could download everything and we got everything for you. Hit me up on LinkedIn. It's Nick Luisi or Nicholas Luisi, and that's spelled Loise. So those are some good socials. Facebook, I'm active on. Instagram is more casual. It's for family and friends, and kind of the things that I like to collect. I like watches and fashion, so that's what I do. So I don't use Instagram for business.
That is great. So you heard it. You've got email, we've got LinkedIn, and he's got a link. All of that information will be in the show notes below. And feel free to reach out to Nick and get some more information on sales and sales performances. Nick, it has been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Until next time.